So in this video, I want to answer the question, should you buy the Note 10 and Note 10 Plus? Because recently these phones just came out. At the time of this recording, these are going to be the prices and the availability when it comes to the Note 10 and the Note 10 Plus, so keep this in mind. So let's start off with, should you buy the Note 10 and Note 10 Plus? Who are these phones for? Are these phones actually worth it at the end of the day? So let's start off with the Note 10 and the Note 10 Plus. First of all, we all know Samsung. Samsung is a premium smartphone brand, of course, and the Note line is no exception. It's pretty much the cream of the crop when it comes to Samsung, and when it comes to smartphones as a whole, you will be paying a premium for the Note line. And that's pretty much how Samsung envisioned this phone to begin with. It's not so much the case nowadays when you look at the Note line. It used to be a powerhouse of a phone, and a lot of people usually bought the Note lineup in the past many years ago for hardcore smartphone fans or enthusiasts or people who really wanted a monster of a smartphone. But now that's not really so much the case when a lot of other smartphones are really catching up with the Note line of series. Just got to keep it real with you guys. But anyway, let's go ahead and start off with the Samsung Galaxy Note 10. The regular Samsung Galaxy Note 10 is going to cost $1,000. So you can see the Samsung Galaxy Note line is no joke. It is, like I said, the premium smartphone to buy, and it is the cream of the crop. So of course you are going to be paying that premium smartphone price, of course, when it comes to the Samsung Galaxy Note 10. And $1,000 is a lot of money for a smartphone when you, of course, do have to take in consideration what $1,000 can actually get you nowadays. That can actually get you a pretty good gaming laptop. If you were to go out and buy a pretty good gaming laptop, $1,000 will get you a hell of a lot when it comes to that, so just take that into consideration as well. And then we do have the Samsung Galaxy Note 10 Plus, and this is where the real killer comes in, because this one is no joke. It comes in over $1,000. I think it's around $1,200 or $1,300 for the Samsung Galaxy Note 10. Regardless of the price, it is a very expensive phone for the Note 10 Plus, the extra variant of this one, and that one is more so targeted to the hardcore of hardest fans when it comes to smartphones, when it comes to power users, when it comes to enthusiasts of technology and things like that. That's probably, honestly, the one that you're gonna want to go for, just because that one pretty much has all the features that the Note line has to offer. The Note 10, you kind of miss some features when you talk about the Note 10. I'm not trying to say that it's a bad phone by any stretch of the imagination, because again, the Note 10 is a phone that's going to cost you $1,000. So you can see it's still not a very cheap phone. It is a very expensive phone for what it is, but just paying $200 or $300 more will get you a very slightly better smartphone. So let's actually compare the two, and then let's compare it to some other phones on the market when it comes to value and when it comes to performance, when it comes to all that jazz. Now, first off, both phones are really similar, and I'm pretty sure for the average consumer, let's just talk about the average consumer, or maybe even the power user to some extent. Let's keep it real here. For the most part, if you do end up buying either one of these smartphones, you're going to be super happy with your choice. It's not like if you buy the Samsung Galaxy Note 10 compared to the Note 10 Plus, you're getting ripped off or anything like that. The gap between these phones are so close. You just get a little bit extra for your money when you buy the Note 10 Plus compared to the regular Note 10. But some of the biggest differences is going to be, of course, the size of the phone. I think one's 6.3 inches compared to 6.8 inches. One's going to have a 1080p or 14, I think, lower resolution screen, mind you. I think 1080p, I do believe. And then the other one's actually going to be a 2K screen, so 1440p. And then the biggest advantage the Note 10 Plus has over the regular Note 10 is going to be the fact it does actually have an SD card slot, micro SD, and then this one does not have a micro SD card slot. Both of them, I don't think, have any headphone jacks on the actual device. But then another killer on the Note 10 Plus versus the Galaxy Note 10 original is going to be the fact that you are getting a substantially bigger battery when it comes to battery life. And of course, if you're going to be buying a phone this expensive, you do have to take that into consideration as well. The battery is much more bigger. Let me see if I can pull up the specs. So you're talking on the original Note 10, 3,500 milliamps compared to 4,300 milliamps. So you can see that's a pretty big gap when it comes to the battery life. And battery life is one of the most important things when it comes to your smartphone. And of course, most people who are looking at these phones to begin with are probably power users, and you're probably going to want the biggest battery money can buy, and that's going to be the Note 10 Plus with 4,300 milliamps. And besides that, that's pretty much all the differences. Pretty much just bigger battery, a better screen, bigger screen. I think the Note 10 Plus is also the only one, as I know of right now, I do believe, that will have 5G support, although 5G is still very new at this very moment. But if you're trying to future-proof yourself or what have you, then the Note 10 Plus is probably going to be the way to go compared to the Note 10, just because you want all those extra features, you want the 5G capability overall. Yes, you're spending $200 extra more dollars, but you are getting substantially more, I will have to say. But I think for a lot of people, if I were to ask people what would they go for, and $1,000 is just a lot of money, then I would honestly probably recommend the Samsung Galaxy Note 10, just because you're not missing that many features. It's not like all these features that I just mentioned you will be missing. It's not like 3,500 milliamps is too low in battery. That's still something that's still fairly big. You can always buy a battery bank later. I'm sure nowadays you probably won't even notice the battery life difference, to be honest, from day-to-day usage. Also, the screen resolution, 1080p is still substantially fine nowadays. 1440p is nice, but it's not mind-blowing. It's not like you're going from 1080p to 4K. Maybe if the jump was 4K to 1080p, I would say yes, that's a very bigger, better screen. But you do have to also take in consideration when we're talking about resolutions, when we're talking about the size of the phone, you do have to take in consideration that the Note 10 regular is a smaller phone, and since it is a smaller phone with a smaller screen on it, that means the 1080p, you should technically have more actual density with the actual picture, and the picture should look really crisp on that phone, even though it's only a 1080p screen compared to a 1440p screen, because the 1440p screen is on a 6.8-inch display. So maybe that's why Samsung did that as well, not just for you to justify the extra $200 to $300 for this phone, but for it being a bigger phone, they wanted to make sure the pixels wouldn't be as pixelated or what not have you, so they decided to put a 1440p screen instead of a 6.3-inch screen on the Samsung Galaxy Note 10. So yeah, probably the best bang for your buck is the Note 10. But if I'm being 100% honest, all things aside, and talking to you guys realistically, I would say that these phones are probably overpriced. Yes, I'm going to say it right now. I am a hardcore Samsung fanboy when it comes to phones, when it comes to buying things. I do love my premium stuff. I do love Samsung, but I will have to admit, I think for a lot of people, even facts prove it nowadays, that $1,000 for a smartphone is just too expensive. And the market time and time again has proven that a lot of people are not willing to spend $1,000 for a smartphone. That's just way too expensive, taking in consideration what you can buy sub $1,000, and what you can buy nowadays for sub $1,000 is a whole hell of a lot of a smartphone, and I think there are some very good options on the market. So honestly, if I'm being realistic, if you had to choose one of these, take the Note 10 Plus. And of course, people who already have their mindset on the Note 10 anyway are going to buy the Note 10. I really can't change your mind anyway. I know that's how it is. Let's keep it real with you. Let's keep it real and not lie here. If you're going to buy them, you're going to buy them in the first place, regardless of watching this video. But let's talk about some other options on the market that are just as, or maybe even better for your money. I know the whole appeal of the Samsung Galaxy Note line is the fact that you do get a pen, but you do have to keep in mind you are paying a premium for this smartphone, and you're really paying for the pen alone. And it really depends, are you actually gonna use the pen? Because for me personally, I had a whole bunch of Note phones. I had a Note 2 and I had a Note 5, and honestly, for me personally, I honestly did not use the pen as much as I thought I would use the pen. It's a great input device. It's a great productivity device and a productivity tool, but honestly for me, time and time again, what I did on my smartphone, I did almost common things you would see people do on smartphones. I was like browsing the web, watching videos all the time, texting my friends, web browsing, just normal everyday activities where the pen didn't actually come in use, and the pen does add up to the price, and that's why you're paying so much, because you have the added function of the pen when it comes to the Note series. So you do have to take in consideration how much are you really going to use the pen, because let's keep it real, if you're interested in one of these smartphones, the Note 10 Plus or the Note 10, then you may actually even be considering the Samsung Galaxy S10 line, because the Samsung Galaxy S10 line is not that old. It just came out in March of 2019, so you can see as the date and the recording of this video, those phones are still really relevant. And let's actually talk about those phones really quickly. Let's go over to Amazon, and if you look at the Amazon listing for this phone specifically, you will see the Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus, the best S10 money can buy, which I do actually own at this very moment. It's only going to cost you $779. Now, keep in mind, of course, I will admit that's still a very expensive price for this phone, so it's not like it's going to be a cheap phone to begin with. It's still a premium price for this phone. $779 is still something to take in consideration, but you have to take in consideration that normally this phone was around $900 to $1,000 when this phone first came out, and now they're knocking off about $200 to $300 off this phone. You can see this is one hell of a deal, and there are some benefits of buying this phone compared to buying the original Note 10 instead of the Note 10 Plus. Like for instance, if you didn't buy the Note 10 Plus and you only bought the Note 10 original, which is still an amazing smartphone, the S10 Plus, which is $779 compared to $1,000, you would actually be getting some pretty good features that aren't in that phone. Like for instance, the screen is a 1440p screen. I also do believe the S10 Plus does have a slightly bigger screen. I think 6.4 versus 6.3, I do believe. You're also getting a headphone jack, and I also do believe you are getting a bigger battery, believe it or not. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, with the S10 Plus versus the original Note 10 as we speak, this phone is definitely the better deal as we speak. I cannot deny that, unless you really need the pen and your heart is set on the Note line for whatever reason. This phone is just simply a better buy to begin with, and I cannot deny that. You're better off buying the S10 Plus. You're just pretty much all this phone is compared to the base Note 10 is. It's basically the Note 10 without a pen, but you're actually getting more features with this phone. Like I said, a headphone jack, 1440p screen, I think an inch bigger when it comes to the phone, a bigger battery. So you can see overall this phone is just a better deal, considering it's only $779, and that's only the Amazon pricing on this phone. You will have to go out for yourself and look around for different deals for this smartphone, but I'm sure you can even get it less. And even if you want something slightly different than the S10, you could go with the original S10, not the S10 Plus, and you could go with the S10e, because those phones are amazing phones. And if this phone's already sitting at $779 to buy this phone outright unlocked, that does mean that those phones are even going to be cheaper, $600, maybe $500 for the S10e. You can find really good deals. And then there's also other phones on the market, like for instance me. Even though I'm a big hardcore Samsung fanboy, I actually do like the OnePlus line of phones. For instance, the OnePlus 7 Pro, I do believe it's called, and that phone is very relevant because that phone literally just came out like 3 or 4 or 5 months ago, so that phone is still really relevant, and that phone's only going for $600 or $700 as we speak, and that phone does have some amazing features attached to that phone. Granted, it's kind of hard to get that phone in America. You do have to be on T-Mobile, I do believe, to get the OnePlus 7 Pro, but that phone is an amazing phone for a couple of different reasons. First of all, it does have a full screen on the front, so no punch outs, no notches, nothing weird about the OnePlus 7 Pro. And the other thing about that phone which makes it a monster of a phone is the fact that the Oxygen OS is amazing. I love the fact that it's more closer to stock Android compared to the One UI that Samsung is currently using. Obviously, it's just a preference on what type of skin do you like on Android, but the biggest thing about that phone that makes it a monster is the fact that it does have one of the best screens in the market. I think it does support a 1440p screen, but what makes it an amazing deal for the OnePlus 7 Pro is the fact that screen specifically does have a 90 hertz refresh rate, I do believe. So that means you're gonna be very smooth when you use everything on that. And a lot of people said once they use a 90 hertz screen compared to a normal 60 hertz refresh rate, it does make a world of a difference. Honestly, for me, I can't really vouch for that because I never used a smartphone with a 90 hertz display, because honestly, even the premium brands like Samsung, Apple, and things like that have not caught up to that, and they don't use that in their actual smartphone, since it's still a very new concept, at least for the smartphone world. And for the mobile world, we don't really see screens all too often. These might be some of the first phones on the market to actually utilize refresh rates over 60 hertz. That just means that you do get better smoothness, so things will be less laggy, things will scroll faster. Overall, it'll feel like the phone is a much more better phone. I guess the only downside with the OnePlus 7 Pro is the fact that the OnePlus 7 Pro is not really certified for water and dust resistant, but apparently people have tested it and it will survive a water dunking and things like that. But it does have a mechanical camera that does pop out, since it is all screen. It doesn't have a notch, it doesn't have anything else attached to the phone. And so that's basically it, and I'm just telling you how it is. There's just other options on the market, and the smartphone game has becoming much more better in the recent years. You look at the last 2-3 years, better smartphones have been coming down in price, and honestly, I cannot recommend these phones. They're great phones, and everyone can admit that, but for what you're paying for, you're better off buying something else. I'm just trying to really prove my point. These are just too expensive. And then you also do have to consider, if you are thinking about buying a new smartphone right this moment, you may want to hold off as well, because as these phones get slightly older, there will be more discounts on these phones. And I do know for a lot of these smartphones, like when I bought my Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus, they were having a crazy sale on this, and I got this well under the initial retail value of this phone. So you may want to wait a couple of months if you still have a good working phone and you're thinking about upgrading anyway. And then to top it all off, there's always new phones coming out on the market. Like for instance, we all know right around the corner, Apple is going to do their unveiling of the next iPhone, the iPhone 11, and then we also hear these rumors coming up now about the next Pixel phone, and apparently the Pixel 4 is going to have some amazing features. I know that phone's not for everybody, and it does show that a lot of people aren't buying their premium stuff when it comes to the Google Pixel line for reasons, but you may want to hold out for that smartphone. So I'm saying right now, there's a lot to choose from when it comes to smartphones, and honestly, these are just priced really too expensive. In my wholehearted opinion, I honestly would not recommend these, because I just proved to you that there's other options on the market that could be better, that are actually cheaper options, just to say. And most phones, even in the $300, $400, $500 category now, are getting very impressive. And I think for most people and for everyday use, you don't really need all these features. And a lot of times, what are you actually doing on your smartphone to justify that $1,000 price tag on some of these premium smartphone brands? I know they want people to pay this, but honestly, it just does not make sense. But they're still very good phones. Obviously, if you have a trade-in as we speak, like a smartphone trade-in or something to trade in to bring down the value of the Samsung Galaxy Note, then I would say go ahead and pull the trigger on this phone. I keep talking badly about this, but it's not a bad phone. It's just that it's just priced way too high for what you're actually getting when you look at other things on the market in the smartphone brand. If you can get this thing like for $700 or even $800, then maybe it's worth a pull if you can save a couple of cash by trading in an older smartphone or the current smartphone that you currently have. Go around and check for deals and things like that, because as we speak, there's always different carriers, always these different companies that are always willing to give out different discounts and different deals and things like that when it comes to these smartphones. But anyway, there you have it. Should you buy the Samsung Galaxy Note 9? It really, the Samsung Galaxy Note 10, it really just depends on user to user. But in my personal opinion, the answer would be probably not. Anyway, guys, this is Wayne from My Tech News, signing out.